So when you have a little Nero's pizza, you obviously need to have a lovely cheese pizza to go with it. I'm going to take you through a tutorial on how to make that lovely cheese pizza, but there's a caveat to this. There are a lot of mistakes along the way, which I think sometimes can be even more helpful because it's going to show you what not to do and how you can make it even better yourself. So the ingredients are really easy. I'm basically making a salt dough as my clay. From memory, a 2:1:1 ratio. So it was, I'm pretty sure, half a cup of flour, quarter cup of salt, and a quarter cup of cold water. And just giving that a really good mix together, first with a spoon and then with my hands. Now this made, as you can see, 2 balls worth of the dough. However, you can make this and hold half of that aside. I'm using this for the ice cream sundae, which is the next tutorial, and that, I'm happy to say, turned out very nicely. So just grab that second ball and just pop that into a plastic bag and store that for another day. So you're going to take your hand, give that ball a little smush, then you're going to grab a rolling pin and just start rolling that out so that's nice and thin. I just use my hands and kind of just start shaping the edges more into a circle shape. You can see by this point I'm kind of realizing it's probably a little too big. So I just grab a spoon and sort of start cutting out a little bit of a smaller shape. Use the edges of your hands just to kind of keep turning that around. You might want to use like a little bit of water just to help smooth the edges. At this point, I've started to pull up the edges to make it look more pizza-like. However, okay, this is where everything changes. Screenshot right here. This is a photo of pizza from Pizza Hut. I figured this is really what you're wanting it to look like. I thought just by cutting out like the little edges around the sides of the pizza like this would make it easier. You really need to be very dramatic when you're creating this pizza mold shape. So what I would do differently is actually mold up the pizzas so they almost looked like individual slices stuck back together, so that you've got really clear, steep edges around those triangles that dip down. You're going to see in the final pizza ornament that I've done, it looks really flat. I had hoped that by cutting lines into the glue cheese that you could see that it's sort of pizza shapes. It really doesn't work that way. So that's how I would do things differently. Grab a pencil, stick a hole through. That way you have a space that you're going to be able to thread the ribbon later. So you do want to punch that hole out before it goes into the oven, because once that shape is dried, there is no breaking it apart. Pop that onto a baking tray. You bake it on low, about 2 hours, so 120 degrees Celsius or 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Now at this point, I am going to start blending some colors together. This is so I can create a bit of a wash that's going to go around the edge of the pizza to make it look a bit more like golden pizza dough. So what you're seeing is the raw sienna and a little bit of black, kind of just kind of getting that color mixed together. This is why your recycling bin is a handy place. This ends up being your like little paint palettes. Once I kind of got that color that I wanted, I ended up mixing that in with some water and just grabbing a brush and just gently rubbing that just around the edges. There's no need to do the entire center part because that's not going to be on show. Let that dry for just a little bit between doing that pizza dough wash. Then what we're going to do is grab a dry brush and just going to dab some of that dry paintbrush into your acrylic mix, not the wash. And you're kind of going to, I think the word stippling, you're kind of just going to sort of dab that randomly. You don't want too much, but you're going to be layering color on top of this. So sort of like that little slightly darker color of golden brown goes around the pizza edges. If you find you've got too much paint on the brush, just dab it off with onto another palette or onto paper towel and just sort of start again. And then I'm doing some fawnal color as well. So this is a bit more of a deep brown. As you can see, I kind of took paper towel and kind of dabbed it just to kind of soften it, grabbing that wash and just covering the back as well. Now at this point, I am going to say this is where, again, I would not go down the path I did. I am mixing the color of tomato paste. I thought I would layer it the way you would a pizza. This didn't work out for me. It kind of just mushed together. You can make this color though. I went with first like a basic red, the raw sienna, and a little bit of watered down black acrylic paint. That made that the tomato paste color that you have here. I did find it was a little too dark and not really appealing looking, so that's why I added the cadmium red. It added just that bit of more bright tomato color to it, and the end result was a bit more of a brighter tomato paste that you would use for pizza. So while I'm showing you this color, I would set aside right to the end. I did add baby powder to create more of a texture, so it's a bit like creating like a modeling paste. That way it's not like a flat paint that's going on. So this is sort of the color that I ended up with. However, this is not the process that you want to do. This is what happens. It kind of just like sort of mushed all together. I had sort of two cheese colors. It doesn't matter that I had dried it in between, they somehow just blended. So this is where I took the yellow oxide, just mixing it in with, I think it's probably maybe a tablespoon of white craft glue, and you just like pour that all over your pizza. This is where having the pizza shaped would have worked a whole lot better, because then it would have just like folded around each sort of pizza slice. You want to make sure that the crust is still showing. You also don't want this to look like perfect. This is what it looks like when it's dry. I let that dry for a few hours. As you can see, this is where I'd hoped it was going to kind of be able to cut and show. Definitely needs to have more shape to it. That's okay though, we live and learn. I found this was looking a bit too artificial cheese, so I kind of threw some sort of tomato colors on top. Don't freak out that I've thrown all of that on top. You take your paper towel and dab this on, and that kind of breaks up some of that plain color. What I loved about this is I accidentally got paper towel stuck to the pizza, and I realized that that's what was going to help create the texture on top. You know, when you have those different golden pieces of bubbling cheese that sit on top and they slightly brown. In hindsight, I can see this looks a bit more like pepperoni slices. That's okay. I would tear these little paper towel pieces into even smaller sizes. I might even color those and let those dry before basically paper mashing those on top, but you kind of get the gist of what we're doing here. I did put a final layer of white craft glue on. One that had a bit more gloss would have been a bit nicer, because you want this to look like gooey cheese that has just melted. However, it's better than having flat acrylic paint on top. So a layer of that, let that dry because that's going to dry clear. This is where the tomato paste should be going on, but just grab a little paint and kind of just dab that into corners, just so it looks like the tomato paste is kind of oozed out of the corners of your pizza underneath the cheese. And there you go. That's sort of the process I took. That is my lovely cheese pizza. You know what? When you put it next to Little Nero's pizza box, people get the idea of what it's supposed to be, and I guess that's the main thing. If you try your hand at this and you find even better tips, make sure you share them or link to your own photos so others can learn from this as well. So, hope you guys enjoyed that. And next up, I have got the Junk and Rubbish ice cream sundae from the iconic scene in Home Alone.